Hello and welcome to Poker Stories, a podcast brought to you by Card Player, the poker authority, and hosted by me, Julio Rodriguez. This is episode number 155, featuring poker pro, strategy author, and rap battle specialist Alex Fitzgerald. Let's get into it.
Boys, we got a bleeder in aisle 6, ladies and gentlemen.
Down my pots, I'm drunk and I'm pissed.
For the best the poker world has to offer, subscribe to Poker Go now.
Your super high roller bowl 7 champion, Daniel Negreanu.
Oh yeah!
Wheels are coming off.
That's the craziest hand I've ever seen.
The World Series of Poker, high stakes poker, no gamble, no future, and so much more.
What was that bite?
Sign up at PokerGo.com using promo code CARDPLAYER to get $20 off the first year of an annual subscription now.
By now, you've heard about Global Poker, one of the fastest growing online card rooms available in the US and Canada today. So what's stopping you from trying it out? Global Poker is a safe and secure social poker site that uses their own patented sweepstakes model. Signing up is easy. You can use Google, Facebook, or just an email address. You can always play for free on Global Poker, but you can also buy gold coins for additional play, which will earn sweeps coins that can be redeemed for real cash to a bank account, Skrill account, or even as a gift card. Get a free 5,000 gold coins when you sign up right now at globalpoker.com.
Poker Stories is an audio series that features casual interviews with some of the game's best players and personalities. Each episode highlights a well-known figure in the poker world and dives deep into their favorite tales both on and off the field.
Alex Fitzgerald has been a poker professional for half of his life, turning to the game after a summer of salmon fishing in Alaska when he was just 18 years old. In the nearly 2 decades since, Alex has racked up millions in online winnings with final tables on the World Poker Tour and European Poker Tour. But, unlike other top players, he has also shared his knowledge, taking on students of all levels and steering them towards a better game. In fact, Alex has worked with more than 1,000 players over the years, diagnosing their play, finding the leaks, and plugging them so they can start winning fast. He's also an author, writing The Myth of Poker Talent, Exploitative Play in Live Poker, and most recently, The 100 Biggest Mistakes That Poker Players Make. Alex is giving away 3 training video packages for free right now. All you have to do is visit pokerheadrush.com. Anyway, that is enough intro. Here is my conversation with Alex Assassinado Fitzgerald. I am here with the one and only Alex Fitzgerald. Alex, how you doing?
Good, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Over there in Denver, Colorado. How's the weather like here in March of 2024?
It's pretty dreary today, but it's not snowing, so I'm happy about that. Winters can be brutal here.
Yeah, do you play a lot of live poker up there in Colorado? Make the trip to Black Hawk at all?
I've done it a few times just so I don't get rusty with the live poker, but honestly, 98% of my volume is online just because you can't beat the commute.
Yeah.
You know, you can take notes a lot more easily. You can get a lot
of dress code. The dress code is super loud.
Yeah, exactly. I can wear my Reptar shirt to the online tables, but yeah, I might play like 4 or 5 times a week online, and then maybe every couple of weeks I try to get up there and play live just so I won't get rusty. But yeah, maybe I should put more hours in live.
Yeah, you know, it also helps to socialize with the people, right?
Exactly. It's good to get out there and just remember what it's like to actually play the social aspect of poker as well.
I was out there before the big new casino came into town, and I was surprised at how much action there was. They had a big limit hold'em game going up there. There was like nothing but farmers who were playing massive pots that didn't really seem like they knew what they were doing. And I was like, this is like a hidden gem here. You know, I don't know if that still exists over there, but
there's some good. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, there's some good aggressive players up there now. But there's still a lot of the recreational folks playing that you can get some good action in there as long as you wait for some time. But The other thing that's kind of funny, though, is I notice a lot of people doing more reckless plays, and I think it's because the elevation plays with them. They get up to 8,000 feet, and, you go for 4 or 5 hours, you think you're all right, and I think you just get a little lightheaded, and you go, it's kind of like coming back from the dinner break when you ate too much, like, oh, hell, all in. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
The dinner break trap. It was always, as a poker reporter, we were always ready for after dinner. With people, the flurry of people who just said, "Fuck it, I'm."
Yeah, let's go. Here for a good time, not a long time, boys.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there's a card room in every state these days, Colorado included, but not your home state of Alaska, one of the few states without any gaming. You grew up in Alaska. For how long did you live there?
I didn't actually grow up there. I was born there. I worked up there as a fisherman, but my family...
Oh, little deadliest catch action?
Yeah, thankfully not quite that dangerous, but it was... it's still 100-hour weeks. Like, if you're awake, you're working. So it was definitely something like that. But I was the worst fisherman there ever was. I was lucky to get out of that without hurting myself. But yeah, you do.
How old were you when you were doing this?
I was 18 years old. So that was right after high school. And then I went pro a little bit after that.
You were like, I'll hunt for different fish.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, it's good because you want to have like 6 months of expenses to the side playing cards, and putting that kind of money together when you're 18 is pretty difficult. But you go up and fish, you can put the money together pretty quickly, but it costs you. They're paying you that well because it's a 16-hour day. You got to be prepared for anything. And then, when I came back from doing that, sitting on my ass in a card room where it was air conditioned and sipping coffee and waiting for pocket aces felt like nothing. It was so much easier to fold from that point on.
Okay, so real quick, because I'm interested in the details, because I really did watch Deadliest Catch. So this was summer fishing? Or
yeah, sockeye salmon.
Okay, salmon. Okay, so what does that entail? Is that also nets, or are you literally casting a bunch of lines over the side?
Yeah, it's nets. So, like, you bring the net in, and all the fish are stuck in the net, and you got to get them out and put them into containers pretty quickly in the boat. So they can get really stuck, and it's up to you to look at them really quickly and figure out where they're stuck and get them out. So you're a picker at that point. That's what they call you, a picker. And I was not the fastest picker there ever was, but the skipper, your captain, is telling you to go faster and faster because it's his bottom line if you start slowing down. So
yeah,
it's pretty intense.
And was it dangerous at all?
It was, so a lot of the times you're so close to shore that if you fell out, you probably would be fine. But yeah, there were definitely times you're working with heavy machinery, you're sleep deprived because when the fish are coming in, you gotta go. And sometimes you get sleep, sometimes you don't. And sometimes, the waves were pretty incredible. Or I remember one time we were up against 35, 40 different boats. It looked like something out of an army movie or something like that. And if you just put your hand over the side to grab something from the boat and you collided with another boat, there goes your arm or something like that. Yeah. And there were stories of guys like cutting lines and, cutting themselves. The other problem is the line, when you're picking, will cut up your hands, and so you start bleeding everywhere. Sorry to be nasty about it, but if the fish parts start getting into those cuts, that can infect you, and that's when it starts getting to be a real problem. So you're always having to clean yourself and wear gloves and whatnot. So yeah, it was it was an experience. I realized that's my family's business, is commercial fishing, and I realized I'm never going to give my dad or my grandfather or my uncle a hard time ever again if this is what they had to do their entire lives. This is so much harder than poker.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about salmon these days? Do you order it when you go to restaurants?
I get salmon, and you try to get the wild caught stuff from Alaska so you can support that. Yeah, I still love salmon. It's it's a really healthy option. It's so easy to cook too. Just 20 minutes in the oven at 375 or whatever it is with a little garlic on it, salt and pepper. Throw some frozen peas on the side. You got yourself a meal.
So you're born in Alaska, but you grew up in Washington?
Yeah, I grew up in Bothell, Washington, outside of Seattle.
What kind of a town is Bothell?
It's kind of like a sleepy retirement village. It was a nice place to grow up. It was, I think now there's more of the people who work in Seattle are living in Bothell. But when I was living there, there was a lot of retirees. It was a pretty quiet community. And they did have a card room, though, at the local bowling alley. So that was pretty helpful for someone like myself.
Yeah, I remember we did a survey. I started working for Card Player back in 2006. And at the time, we were doing a survey of every poker room in America at the time. And it was a lot less than there are today.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, I was shocked at how many little 2 to 4 table card rooms were scattered throughout the state of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and in random places like bowling alleys or like VFW halls or whatever, like just scattered throughout, a few tables here and there. So it seemed like a thing in Washington for sure. Absolutely. Was there a lot of card games growing up in the family room?
Yeah, so you got a little bit of downtime when you're fishing because sometimes the nets are out and you got to kill 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. So you end up playing cards with everybody else on the boat because obviously in the middle of the ocean, you're not really getting Netflix out there. So you end up reading a lot. You end up reading a lot. You end up playing a lot of card games. My dad taught me how to play card games from an early age. He never let me win because he didn't think that would be helpful for me, which was really helpful because I was playing No Limit Hold'em when I was really young. And then Rounders came out, and then the World Poker Tour was on TV, and the Moneymaker boom, and everybody started playing poker. And when I was playing with these folks, I realized they don't play poker the way my family plays poker, because the way my family plays poker is you're just always betting. It's just very aggressive. And they were just sitting around, and they'd hit bottom pair, and they'd call me a few times. And then I was playing games in the back of my school. And, I would win and lose. Like, there were some people that could definitely beat me back then, but I was winning more than I was losing. And then I remember just one day everybody had to pay me, and I got like $30 or something like that just from playing in the back of class. And I was thinking, this is crazy, because after taxes, I was working at Arby's at the time, and the minimum wage at that time was like $7.45 an hour. But after you paid your taxes, it was like, you got like $5 an hour or whatever it was. So I was realizing, man, that was 6 hours of work I just got playing in the back of high school. So I was thinking, I got to get online. I got to start doing this more.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you turned pro right out of high school, minus your little fishing excursion.
Right.
So you were obviously playing all throughout high school. You had an early exposure to the game. You've said on other podcasts before that you had a little bit of a rough upbringing. I think in one interview you said you called it traumatic. Kind of grew up hustling a little bit. Did you see poker as kind of a way out of a situation?
Yeah, it definitely was a way out of a situation, because I didn't really understand my options at that time. I did okay in high school. I definitely had a decent enough GPA. I could have gotten student loans and gone to school, but I didn't really have a direction. I didn't really know what I wanted to pursue. And I knew I wasn't cut out for fishing. I wasn't tough like that. So I really saw poker as a way of, okay, I'm going to get out of some of the places I was living in were just not the nicest. And I saw that in poker, obviously sometimes you play poker games and you go, does that person realize they just lost $600? Or does that person realize they just lost $1,000? So I saw the money going around, and I thought, if I can just get a percentage of this, if I could just play tight and get a little bit of this, maybe I can get myself into a better apartment. Maybe I can, get myself some dental coverage, some things like that. And yeah, thankfully it did end up working out.
Well, you say play tight, but back in 2006, all you had to do was loosen up just a little bit, and you could.
That's right.
You could print, right? There's a reason why we were watching Gus Hansen and Michael Mizrachi win every week on the WPT, and it's because they never stopped raising.
That's right. Originally, I played really tight because I was playing so many different tables that I couldn't really handle everything if I started playing really out of my mind. Obviously, when I first got on the internet, it's kind of like an invisibility cloak. So you go, ooh, I wonder what happens if I triple barrel this time. And it worked sometimes, other times it didn't. Then I found this really tight way to play, and I played singles at that time. And I was making money playing really tight. And then I can't remember when this dawned on me, but there was one time I was experimenting, and I realized a lot of the players I was playing against, if you triple barreled versus them with top pair, top kicker, they'd think about it, but they wouldn't always call. And I realized 80% of the time they don't have top pair, top kicker or better, or they don't have two pair or better, or whatever it was. So I was thinking, if I triple barrel, do they fold 8 times out of 10? So that's what kind of started me up. I had no idea what I was doing, but when I was a teenager, I started just firing indiscriminately in a lot of different situations. And obviously, most of the tournaments would go poorly, but every once in a while, you get a deep run going. And then deep in the tournaments, you play against better players that knew how to call you down. So I blew up a lot of the time, but you end up learning a lot. And you end up getting a lot of final tables and third place finishes and seventh place finishes and fifth place finishes. And it was paying bills at that time. So it definitely was working out.
And at the time, did you think I was going to do this until I find something else? Or did you think this is my way, to riches?
I'd be lying to you if I told you I had a plan. It was kind of, I was still trying to help out with my family. So the bills definitely would be, so it kept me at the tables. It kept me playing. And I guess there was a time where things were going really well. I was thinking maybe I could diversify at a certain point, maybe try some different things. But to be honest with you, there was never really anything I did where I made as much money as playing cards. So I just kept at it. And I'm as the years went by, I went through a long period of time where I wasn't enjoying it as much because I wasn't getting better. And I guess subconsciously I knew I wasn't getting better. I didn't know the right things to study. I didn't know the right things to do. And once I started actually making some strides again, once I started finding new plays that I could try, finding new strategy ideas I could implement, that's when I started falling in love with the game again. So I still love playing poker. Like I was playing poker last night and I was still having a great time playing till late. So I've always been fine just continuing playing cards.
So there was this turning point where you found a love for learning about the game. When did you decide to share that with others?
Learning about the game, sharing that with others. I think around, it was pretty early. I think I did some of my first lessons, my God, 15 years ago or something like that. And I realized with poker, because I had times I was up and everything's amazing and you feel great about yourself. And then I had times I was down and, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? I realized I had to diversify. And so I started doing lessons probably 15 years ago. And at the time, it was just to stabilize myself because I was on a downswing. But I ended up finding that you learn a whole lot when you're teaching. You get to talk to poker players. You get to hear about how they think. You make sure you're not getting out of line, because when you're teaching somebody the fundamentals, you say to yourself, oh, wow, yeah, that's a good thing to implement. Maybe I've been deviating from that for a while. So I enjoyed working with the students. I enjoyed feeling like I was getting better myself the more I taught it. I felt like I was solidifying the concepts in my own brain the more I taught. And the more I taught, the better I felt on the felt, the more comfortable I felt, because I could just always think about, oh, we researched this in a lesson recently. What did we decide to do? And yeah, it became this nice process that fed upon itself, that got me playing better, which got me teaching better, which got me playing better, which got me teaching better. And yeah, I've just been doing that for 15 years, coaching.
Yeah, I think that people forget that a lot of times when they ask the question, well, if he's so good, why is he teaching? Or if his lessons are so good, why would he share it with others?
Right.
And it's like, well, why do you think he's so good? It's because he has to force himself to be good.
Exactly.
It all helps each other out. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of poker coaches who say the same thing. They are better because they have to be.
Absolutely. Well, there's sometimes like the action is great late at night and in the afternoons, but in the morning you're not getting as much action going on. You could just coach a couple of lessons right there and get you hourly. Take a couple of hours off, chill with your family, get a meal, get a workout in, and then come back to the felt in the evening. And now it's like you're working 2 shifts as opposed to just the one night shift that most poker players work. So you end up diversifying and getting a little bit more out of your days.
At one point, I think you said you had 1,000 students. Is that still true?
Yeah, I've probably worked with, a lot more than that. I coach almost every single morning. And yeah, a lot of people have also seen the training packages. So it sounds like a crazy number, but when you think about it over 15 years, it spreads out pretty well.
And what does a typical, session look like with you? Like, what would a beginning student get from you?
Yeah, great question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But the one that I like doing a lot with online players is I like looking at their databases. So what I'll do is we'll set up a Zoom meeting, and then I'll say, okay, share your screen with me. And then I guide them through creating the filters themselves so they always can check their game after we're done talking. So they don't always have to go to a poker coach if they want to check on one of their leagues. And yeah. I'll explain what the numbers mean. I usually look at, I try to find the biggest leaks the fastest, because if you can fix the leaks, the largest ones, quickly, it ends up reversing a lot of people's results very quickly. So let's say somebody is a small marginal winner. If you can find 3 massive leaks and fix all of them, they could really likely be an above average winner the next week, as long as they implement what you're talking about. Or let's say someone's not beating the rake. If you find 6 things they're doing that really are costing them a lot of money, you end up getting them into the winner's circle, you get them profitable, and then that's really encouraging. They get more motivated, they start finding more leaks, and then they can become an above average winner after a little bit of time. So you're trying to find the bigger leaks, you end up replaying a lot of hands, and you explain, okay, the reason this is going to lose you money is X, Y, and Z. As you can see, we have a catalog of you doing this 40 or 50 times. That's costing you a lot of money. Let's look at the stat. Okay, this has cost you this many big blinds over this many trials, or whatever it is. And then when a lot of people get that emotional memory of seeing their mistakes in vivid technicolor, they end up not making that mistake again, versus if you're calling too many rivers, but that's spaced out over hours of a session, it's really easy to forget those, right? Or if it's only like 10 or 20 big blinds, but you won 80 big blinds in an earlier pot, it doesn't really feel like that much. So a lot of it is highlighting the biggest spots where they can get the fastest gains. That's what I tend to do with the online players. With the live players, I have to run them through tests that I put together. I made some PowerPoint tests. And I'll say, okay, in this situation, what do you do? In this situation, what do you do? In this situation, what do you do? Explain that to me. And then if I hear or see something that's going to cost them money over time, I'll explain to them why that could be a leak. We also go over live tells, some of the more common live tells I see when I'm playing. I wish some of them were really deadly, but a lot of them just let you know this guy doesn't have premiums in this spot. This guy really doesn't want you to bet in this spot, things like that. So those are the 2 most common lesson types I do with the live players and the online players.
Interesting you brought up live tells. I still have a few that I read back in the day in those classic, poker book, Caro's Book of Tells, right?
Yes.
So they still work because humans are human, right? Yes, they can't help themselves. So, weak means strong, strong means weak from actors. the whole chip glance thing, or looking or staring at a flop. All that stuff still works. People, a lot of the online solver guys will discredit them, but nothing beats a good live read.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about Major League Baseball, it's $1 billion industry, and there's still pitchers who tip their pitches. So if in $1 billion industries people can miss live tells even when people go to the highest echelons, I'm assuming at your 1-3 game, Billy Bob might have a few tells that you could take advantage of.
Exactly. You brought up how you coach new students. It's almost kind of like they're getting a visit to the poker doctor as opposed to taking a class. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times people, they look at poker coach and they think, okay, lesson 1, pre-flop. This is your hand, and a lot of people, like you said, they just need a visit to the doctor. They just need to know what is immediately wrong with me. Where am I leaking blood? Please patch it up.
Exactly.
And we can move on from there. So, yeah, that's interesting.
And there needs to be a plan after you're done to fix the problems, because if I tell you where the issue is and then say good luck to you, that's not that helpful. So I usually give them one of my training packages for free, and I say, watch this. This will show you how to do what we were talking about. It's going to be in a question and answer format. Once you find yourself getting most of the questions right, you will most likely have this fixed. Just make sure to review it every once in a while, because this is something we want to pay attention to.
And at this point, you've got a training package for pretty much every problem, right?
I try to. Yeah, it's fun to put them together. You get to organize your thoughts. It's fun just to teach the students in that question and answer format. It's nice to have something. Obviously, I like the poker lessons as well, but you got to show up and put the time in, versus the training packages are a little bit more automated, so that helps you diversify a bit as well.
Let's talk about the books. What was it like writing those? You got three books, actually 3.1 books, I guess that you could say, with your contribution to Jonathan Little's excelling at Nolan Hold'em as well.
Yeah, and there's another one coming, so look out for that one. And then, so writing books is exactly as difficult as it looks. So it's I really enjoy doing them, because one of the things I like is drinking coffee, listening to death metal, and just writing, because it really feels like the purest extension of your brain. And it's kind of crazy to me that after you have left this earthly plane, you can still put words in someone else's brain. You can still lead them through almost what turns into a guided meditation. Their mind won't be racing from this point on. They'll have the words you wrote down in their head. And not to get too hippy dippy with it, it's fun to write books that actually get people hyped up to play poker. So that's always somewhat my intention when I'm writing, is to get you fired up, get you looking for the right things, and hopefully get you in the right mood. And it's really cool to create a product that could do that. But the thing that I guess is tougher with the books is what's that phrase? To write is human, to edit is divine. Editing 100,000 words, 140,000 words, that takes some time. So it's definitely an undertaking.
Somebody who puts together a magazine every 2 weeks, it's hell.
Yeah, I was about to say, 2 weeks is a turnaround. Oh my God.
But I must say, you are a contributor to Card Player Magazine, and I have a nothing but pleasurable time editing your column. There are very few, if any, changes to ever make. One of the cleanest writers we have, and I have no problem being on record saying that. The other guys need to step up their games.
Awesome, man. Thank
or
you
at least run spell check once in a while. But yeah, I did notice in the way that you write, it's very motivational almost. It can sound like almost like a pep talk, the way that you lay things out for people, and get them to make moves that maybe they're uncomfortable with. And even the way that you title articles, whether it's 7 tips for that, 10 ways to do this, 6 experiments to run here. I think it gets people excited to play poker, just like you said.
I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. Yeah, I try to. So motivation. I mean, there's an art form to coaching. It's not as easy as just giving people the information. It's how much do people assimilate the information. When I was playing Pee Wee football when I was a kid, I had one coach. I had multiple coaches, but the one coach who got through to me, he just always said things in the most motivational way. And that stuck with me to this day. I'm in my late 30s now. I still think of things he said. So, yeah, trying to provide that for somebody else, trying to pay it forward. It's good to hear that it's connecting with people.
And the motivation should be that most people just aren't studying. That's the reality.
Right.
That's the reality of your average poker game. It's just like when I go play golf. I don't want to spend any time on the range or on the putting green or chipping out of the sand. I want to play. I want to play, and I'm going to make the same stupid mistakes I make every round because I never, ever practice or study. And that's the same thing it is with poker. So that should be the motivation for people. I mean, your first book, The Myth of Poker Talent, if you could talk about hard work versus talent when it comes to poker, and what it takes, when you want to get to the top levels, or even just to become profitable.
Oh, yeah. So hard work. So I called it The Myth of Poker Talent because you got to have an eye-catching title to get people to look at it when they're walking through Barnes & Noble, because every book you walk by in Barnes & Noble, remember, that's a year or 2 years or 5 years of someone's life. And you just can't be bothered by most of them because the title is boring or the cover is boring or whatever it is. So obviously there's talent in poker, but there's a lot of guys. Some of the guys I know who've made the most money from this game, they wouldn't even tell you they're talented. They just manage things so well. And part of that is their study. So something that's amazing to me is just, okay, let's say it takes some guy 1 hour to get better at a situation and it takes you 20 hours. It doesn't matter if he never spends the hour and you do spend the 20 hours. You know what I mean? If he thinks he's just God's gift to poker and he never works at it, that's going to bite him in the ass at some point. And you can set up, I haven't been doing this enough, but there was, with a lot of the trainers now, you can set up hypotheticals like the button opens. What do you 3-bet from the small blind? What do you do on the flop? What do you do on the turn? What do you do on the river? What does the solver say about that? And if you just do that for, hell, it might take me 50 hours to get anywhere with that, but you'll feel so much more comfortable after doing that. And the next time you're playing, you'll go, ooh, I know this spot, versus there's a lot of people who are inventing everything as they go. And this is another thing that didn't occur to me until I was at the series this last year, and I played 3 weeks without a cash. And then the day before the main event, I had to get out of there, so I couldn't take a day off. But the day before the main event, I played 14 hours or something and busted 3 out of the money in the mini main or whatever tournament it was. Obviously a little debilitating. Go home, sleep 7 hours, and then play 10 hours or whatever day one of the main is, right? And I ended up cashing the main. Unfortunately, my aces
couldn't. You had a deep run, 600th place or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was fun. It was, unfortunately, my aces couldn't crack the king 10 offsuit, but I couldn't keep going after that. But yeah, I didn't realize this till that series. I was able to play so many hours because I'd worked on so many of the spots before I got to the table. So I wasn't burning myself out trying to invent strategies on the fly, versus if you don't study before a poker tournament, by day 3, day 4, you will be ready to pass out because on every hand, you're winging it. On every hand, you don't know what to do. And that just burns you out trying to come up with new strategies on the fly nonstop. So the harder you work, the easier it gets when you play. The more you see those opportunities, the better you'll do.
Poker Stories is brought to you in part by Resorts World Las Vegas and their beautiful 30-table poker room. Experience the thrill of the game where high stakes meets luxurious ambiance. Located right on the Las Vegas Strip and featuring free parking for Genting Rewards members, Resorts World is a $4.3 billion property that offers world-class gambling, dining, and entertainment options. To learn more, visit rwlasvegas.com. Resorts World Las Vegas. Rule the game.
Hi everyone, this is two-time World Poker Tour champion Jonathan Little, and I want to tell you about my training site, pokercoaching.com. Poker coaching is the place to be if you want to increase your poker skills and learn to crush the games. It's the only place to quickly increase your win rate with active learning, so you can achieve your full poker potential without having to hire an expensive coach. Right now, podcast listeners can score a free membership by visiting pokercoaching.com/cardplayer and get access to top training tools like our interactive hand quizzes, our 7, 14, and 30-day challenges, and a roster of elite coaches such as Matt Affleck, James Romero, Burt Draftganger Stevens, Michael Acevedo, and dozens of others. Again, that's pokercoaching.com/cardplayer to get your free membership right now.
Your second book, Exploitative Play in Live Poker, seems to be a hot topic these days. I just had David Sklansky on the podcast. His new book was about going back to exploitative play when it comes to small stakes. We had an interview with Dara Kearney, who had a similar book as well. It does seem like there's been kind of a rubber banding back effect away back from solvers, back more towards exploitative play these days.
Yeah, there does seem to be something like that, but the way I look at it is it's like when analytics came into baseball. So if you're a baseball fan, 15 or 20 years ago, the analytics came into baseball, and there were some teams like the Oakland Athletics in Moneyball who...
Oh, Michael Lewis, great book.
Yeah, fantastic book, but they went pure analytics. They did a lot of things very differently than everybody was doing. Now, what people forget is the Athletics had the smallest payroll in baseball, so it was a smart idea for them to take a lot of chances, versus what a lot of the bigger teams did is they said, okay, give me the analytical idea behind this change you want to make. And some of the changes they make, and other times they said, okay, we're going to trust our instincts on this one because I think this number might be misleading. So a great example of that was, I'm going to forget the names, but I think it was in the 2016 World Series. There was some young Chicago Cubs player who had a 3-0 count, and he had not swung on 3-0 the entire year. Whatever the number was, it was super low. So the pitcher, having that in his scouting report, he threw a strike that wasn't really a good strike, and it was somewhat in the middle of the strike zone.
Yeah, meatball.
And what was that?
A meatball.
Yeah, a meatball. Yeah, way better word for it. Thank you. Yeah. So he threw a strike that wasn't the greatest strike, but who cares, right? The analytics say he's not going to swing. But what the scout would have told you is, this is a young kid in the World Series. He's jumping out of his shoes. He's going to see that meatball and just swing every single time, even if he normally doesn't swing on 3-0. So there's a place for the scouts, and it ended up being a huge home run, and it switched around the series for the Cubs. So there is a place for the analytics, and then there's some times where you go, in this particular situation, it might not be like the normal times we look at this situation. Maybe we want to deviate, but I don't think you need to be in either camp too hard. There's sometimes I've worked with GTO coaches, and they say, do this bluff, because if he's calling with just these hands, he's not calling enough. And I go, wow, that's a great bluff. And he's not even calling with these hands, which means it's an even better exploitative bluff. This is awesome. So you learn an incredible exploitative play from the GTO stuff. And then there's just other situations where you go, okay, maybe we got to change the range a little bit here, and maybe we don't want to go so hard and fast with this rule so quickly.
I'm interested in talking about the evolution of poker strategy. I think a lot of people felt it's just going to get more and more and more aggressive. And what the reality is that humans will only do what they're comfortable doing. Like you can tell somebody what the correct play is and if they're not comfortable doing it, they just won't, regardless of what the math says.
That's right. That's right. And I do notice online there's players that are comfortable double barreling and triple barrel bluffing versus me than they used to. But at the same time, I can just tell you from coaching people every morning for 15 years, the hardest thing to teach someone how to do is bluff. Because if you think about it, bluffing is a free roll to look like a dumbass. Let's say you shove on the river and the guy folds. Well, you win a medium-sized pot. Nobody sees what a genius you are. Let's say you shove on the river and the guy calls. Now you lose a huge pot and everybody sees you dumb bluff. And there's still a stigma attached to that at the table. There's a lot of passive players that don't take kindly to somebody trying to bluff. So you're going to hear people chortling at you. You're going to hear people snickering. It turns into high school. So a lot of people just don't like that feeling. So I would say most people don't bluff enough. Most people don't value bet enough. That's really hard to get people to value bet enough because they're so worried about getting raised off their hand. They would much rather wrap the table and just see if their hand's good. And people still don't fold nearly enough versus if you got a guy at your table who has escaped your notice over the last hour and a half and all of a sudden he triple barrels for the first time at a full ring table, he's got it. Maybe versus a psychopath, you have to call down with that top pair, no kicker, but you don't have to do it versus this guy because his two pair are better every single time. So I still see a lot of mistakes. Every time I play, I see mistakes. Hell, every time I play, I make mistakes. So humans being human, you're never going to quite get to that just perfect output. So there's always going to be profit in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Where do you see the most right now?
The most mistakes or the most profit?
The most profit, whether it be online, live, tournaments, cash, even sit and goes. I mean, if you could find them.
That's a great question. So you can play a more solid style at cash and still do really well. So I'm working with a client right now, and I think he's won like 23 out of his last 27 sessions, taking a more solid style. If you pick really loose, aggressive games and you use this checklist, this pilot's checklist of almost 10 or 20 things to approach those loose games. So you'll see that quite a bit. If you want to learn more about that, sign up at pokerheadrush.com. Send me an email. When you get one of my email newsletters, respond to it, and we can talk about that. So the other times I see it, tournaments are still amazing because tournaments, every person who is chasing a big score, who's dreaming, they love tournaments because they know how much they can lose and it's fixed. Yeah. So you think of like even a $50 buy-in or a $100 buy-in, a lot of people can lose $100 and just go, okay, it's like a sports bet on the Knicks. What do I care? But first place is 10,000 or whatever it is. They can still dream about that. So you get a lot of people entering tournaments who just don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to respond to overbets. They don't know how to respond to triple barrels. They call too much versus three bets and call down too much. If you really are on point from hand one, you can still make a lot of money.
Before solvers came along, there was a lot of trends in poker strategy. People would talk, whether it was back in the day just downgrading from 3x preflop to a min raise, that was a trend, or
That's right.
The preflop 4-bet wars then became 5-bet wars or whatever. and then even then so the last 4 years or whatever, people have been defending their big blind more. I guess you could say that's a trend, but not really, because it's just people playing correctly.
That's so right, and they'll play incorrectly too. Make it 3.5x. A lot of these people who do the monkey see, monkey do thing, they just think you're supposed to call everything out of the big blind. They don't realize if you 3.5x it, you're not supposed to call with a 7-4 offsuit or a Jack-6 offsuit or a Jack-2 suited or whatever it is. And they'll just call down 100 big blinds when they flop top pair. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there. But yeah, you can still deviate from there and make money.
Well, exactly. But that's my point. Is is this really a trend, or is this more just the solvers have said so, and now the lay people who don't even study are eventually picking up on what everyone else is doing, and moving towards it kind of, I don't know, through osmosis. Just like the field gets better just by having their eyes open, kind of.
That's right, but they usually only implement the simple fixes. So let's say somebody keeps making it 2x, and you see everybody keeps calling from the big blind. That's real simple to implement. But now somebody makes it 3 big blinds. Now you're not really sure. Is this hand one hand I'm supposed to call with or not? There you got them stuck. So they notice everybody's check raising more, so they start trying to check raise too. But they're not sure how to handle turns and rivers because they haven't drilled that. So that's a point of exploitation as well. They know they're supposed to be firing more on the turn. They know they're supposed to be firing more on the river because they see people doing that more, but they don't know specifically what turns or rivers. So that's something you can take advantage of as well. And a lot of these players, if you're playing live, they let emotion dictate when they're going to do these moves. So if you see them lose a pot or get heated or get shown a bluff, they'll still decide, okay, this is the time I turn in triple barrel, versus if you haven't seen them do that for 2 or 3 hours, it's really likely they're not going to do it the first time 4 hours in. So there's still a lot of times where people are not picking up the advanced plays because you can only pick them up by working on your game consciously in the lab away from the table. You can't just observe people betting and go, I got it now. I'm supposed to do it on the 7 of diamonds, but not the 9 of spades.
Where do you see the game going as far as, the study behind it? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where, it's just completely solved? Like there'll be some sort of supercomputer decades from now that can run every single situation, at light speed? Or do you think we're miles away from that where we have no chance of ever getting to that point?
So trying to find the maximum exploit in a particular situation requires you to know precisely what your opponent is doing with their entire range. That is something that can never be known because honestly, I don't think most of these players even know what they're doing with each hand until the bet is in front of them. And it could be changed by how much they ate at the dinner break. It could be changed based on whether they got 6 or 10 hours of sleep the night before. It could be changed based on an argument they had with their spouse. So if they don't even know what they're doing, it'd be really hard for a supercomputer to know what they're doing and maximize the profit. Now, is it going to keep getting harder? I think the study is definitely going to keep making the game a little bit more difficult. It's not as easy as it was when I first got in. I'll say that. But at the same time, the first time I heard poker was dying was in 2006. Somebody said that to me. I kid you not. Somebody said poker is dying, 2006. I remember that. So it's 2024 now, and I cannot tell you some of the things I saw at the series when I was playing for the better part of a month. There were so many times I was watching the action because I try to watch every hand, even though it's hard. There was a lot of times I was watching the action. I'd go, okay, this person's range is uncapped. This person's range is capped to hell. This person is a decent grinder. Okay, I expect to see a really big bet here because this person's got third pair and they don't want to see a big bet. And it would go, check. I can't fire that bet. So they might know all the math. They might know they need to do it, but they still couldn't find it in themselves. And I didn't see that once or twice or 3 times. I saw that over and over and over again where people knew what they were supposed to do, but they couldn't find it within themselves when the money was deep. So the tech can tell you everything you want. If you're not going to implement it, it's not going to mean anything at the end of the day. And a lot of people, they still tilt. They still call down too much. They still won't bluff in the right situations. They still misread stacks. There's always going to be that possibility, especially as apparently everybody in their moose now wants to play poker. So you're always going to get new spots.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not only thinking about what makes the ideal poker player, but also, here's a question for you. What makes the ideal poker student for you? Would you want somebody who's completely green, who you can mold from the beginning? Would you want somebody who is eager to learn, but is like a mid-stakes player looking to like become more advanced? What's the best spot for you?
So that's an excellent question. So typically what's the easiest to work with in a lesson is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being an excellent player, 1 just being, I don't even know the hand rankings yet. You want a 2 or a 4. So a lot of the times the 5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Those threes, those pesky threes, when they think they know everything.
No, the 3s are fine, but they're actually, that's interesting. We'll talk about the 3s in a second. So the 5s have usually been so successful, they're resistant to change. So it takes a lot of convincing. The 1s, you're working with so many of the fundamentals that it's several hours, several lessons before you can even start tweaking things. The 2s, who know everything but haven't developed bad habits, if you can get them playing games where the money means a little something to them, but they're still okay with losing a little bit of it, they're paying for an education, you can get them developing some good habits very quickly. The 4s often are good enough to know that they need to be aggressive in certain situations. They have to accept that some of their plays are going to fail. But because they haven't gotten to that highest level yet, they know they need to make some changes. So they're usually really open to changes. Now, the 3s, they usually just had some recent successes with some tweaks they made, but they haven't moved into being a consistent player. But if they were doing anything during those recent good runs that kind of got them into that mid-tier for the first time, they're going to have a really hard time turning away from that. Even if you go, hey, this is a different site, people play very differently on this site, you got to play a little bit more aggressively on this. I'll give you an example. Sometimes a lot of people play on local sites, or they'll be in a country or a province that has an online site that's really soft. So you can get away with just cold calling all the time because you have incredible implied odds, because people will still make top pair and go broke in these super new markets. So your implied odds are always very significant in these markets. But you tell people, okay, now you're moving into one of the big .com sites, so you're moving into one of the big international sites. People are not going to pay you off like that anymore. They're a little bit more experienced, but they'll go, this has been working for me so well, I don't want to change from it. So it becomes a little bit harder to convince them off of that.
Right now, everyone listening is trying to just figure out if they're a 2, a 3. There's some people lying to themselves and saying that they're a 4 or 5, but I know none of you are listening to this podcast if you're a 4 or 5. Alex is the only 4 or 5 listening to this podcast as far as I'm concerned. So everyone else, needs to hire a coach. Maybe Alex is available. Well, I got some rapid fire questions to close it out. Although, there's a few of them, so don't feel pressured to answer too fast.
Let's do it.
You played a lot of sports growing up. I knew you were into distance running. What was that about?
I needed to do something after I quit. After I quit all sports I just got to a point I was playing so much cards. I wasn't really doing high school sports or anything like that, so I was just going nuts. So I didn't have any idea what I was doing. The first time I went distance running, I put on some old Airwalks and threw on some sweatpants and a sweatshirt, went running around the block, and when I got home, I drank a Coke. So clearly I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, I just kept doing it. And then I got to a point I was doing 12 miles, 13 miles at a clip. And then, you get older. I started getting more into weightlifting because distance running becomes a lot harder once you get into your 30s. You got to use the Theragun for an hour, 2 hours every night. It gets rough, but yeah, distance running is definitely nice if you need to clear your mind.
Yeah. What was your how far would you run for? Did you ever do it competitively?
Nah, I never did it competitively. I like being alone. It's kind of a meditation. I like doing it without music a lot of the time, because you think about your problems at the beginning of the run, and then by the end of the run, they look completely different because you've changed your brain chemistry almost. So I didn't want to be around people because that would interrupt, I guess, the process that I was trying to do. So I don't know. Maybe I should try to do it one of these days in a more structured environment.
you mentioned thinking about your problems. I listened to this other podcast you did where you talked about perspective really, and the fact that we're all playing a game, whether for a living or for leisure, already puts you in the top 1% of fortunate people. So that it helps you when it comes to your mindset dealing with bad beats or things not going your way or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely. I obviously everybody can only know what problems they're dealing with every day, and everybody's got problems. So of course, the problems we have are going to be first and foremost in our mind, because we're not dealing with other people's problems. We're dealing with our own problems. But it's always good to have some perspective if you can. If you ever do charity work or anything like that, you'll see some things where you go, oh my God, I cannot believe what I was complaining about the day before. I had a good friend of mine who was, this was in Central America. I was in a really good friend of mine that I was hanging out with, and we went to his house one time, and there was a part of his house that was just dirt on the floor. There wasn't even concrete or anything like that. And I always remember that, because I go, okay, this guy was happier than anyone I knew, and he was literally on the dirt sometimes. So I'll try to have a little bit of humility when certain things are pissing me off.
I heard that you like to rap battle. I mean, you said you were into listening to death metal, so the fact that you like to rap battle might be a surprise.
Yeah. No, I like. I liked growing up. Was really into hip hop. There was a lot of hip hop around me. I was more into the metal first. Obviously angsty white kid. So I definitely got into that quite a bit. But yeah, there's nothing like battling. Rap battling is like the greatest high you'll ever experience in your life. It is crazy, and it's pronounced for like 20 minutes. You're so present, and the lights are just so vibrant, and everything's just boom right in front of you, and you have to be so in that moment. And the battle rap community is actually one of the coolest communities I've ever met. They're actually really inclusive and mellow and cool. You would think, obviously, there's dumbasses like there is in every community, but everywhere I battled, I really liked the people that I met. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I was about to say, like, you felt like you were welcome in these situations. So where were you doing these battles at?
So I did a lot in California, and I did a lot in Texas. So I was in Dallas for a little bit. I think Fresno, California, Santa Cruz, and the Cali crowds are incredible. They'll be quiet while you're rapping, and they like punchlines, and that's what I like to write, because punchlines are fun for the whole crowd. It gets everybody loud. It makes you really excited as you're delivering it. And in the South, it was a little bit more about rapping ability, which I frankly do not possess. So it was a little bit harder to win in the South, because you actually had to rap, and it was yeah, you couldn't just clown on a guy and have some fun like that. It was more of a, in Cali, it was more of a block party and everybody having a good time, and just getting into the moment, getting into the jokes, getting into the punchlines, getting into the spirit of it all.
Maybe you could be a ghostwriter for a rap, for like a really talented rapper who has no ability to write. You guys should collaborate and take over.
Yeah, that's a really good point. No, I should try that. Although I wasn't the greatest writer either. I can make punchlines that made people have a good time, and that was about it.
Okay, give me your best line. What was the one that you remember?
Oh man, it was like 7 years ago. I'm actually having a hard time remembering. What was it? So in battle rap, everybody. This isn't my best line, but this is an example. Is everybody has a gun so big joke, because you're trying to outdo the last person who did a gun so big joke. So I had some line was screaming, "Let's get down," like a Bow Wow chorus. Gun so big, NASA got a countdown for it. And I like that one because you're rhyming like 4 or 5 syllables, so it has a nice rhyme scheme with it, right? So stuff like that was real fun. And then it made kids get real excited, like, "Oh, gun so big, NASA got a countdown for it. I've never heard that one," right? It's a good time.
Do you have any of this recorded?
Yeah, it's it's on YouTube. So I can't remember. You can look up Assassinato versus 1C Slam. That was probably the one that was the most fun.
Round 3. It is on Assassinato whenever you are ready.
When life dealt me a bad hand, I ran up on the dealer and made him reshuffle. I'm the Socrates of concrete jungles. My Ali shuffle make you see double. Everybody knows my rhymes be trouble, while your rings only fire when they're rebuttals.
All right, do you have any hidden talents other than rap battling?
Man, hidden talents?
I mean, that's a big one.
Not really. Talking way too long about boxing. That's it. That's about it.
You're into boxing, huh?
Yeah, I like boxing. So boxing's a big part of Alaskan culture because they're always indoors so much. So basketball is a big part of their culture. Boxing's a big part of their culture. So my dad boxed growing up, and so when I was a kid, the fights were always on. My dad always had boxing on the TV, so I ended up watching a lot of boxing, reading a lot of autobiographies about fighters. It's super motivating to see guys push themselves to that level. The thing about boxing is those athletes are the most honest, they're there and they're exposed, and it's them versus the world, there's no one helping them in that moment. So I watch way more boxing than anybody should. I watch it on every station. I watch old fights on YouTube. So yeah, that's I end up every time I'm at the barbershop, that's what we're talking about is boxing. I guess that's
sweet science.
Yeah, that's it. I don't really have. I've spent too much of my time on poker. I don't think I have too many hidden talents, unfortunately.
What about the best shot you ever took, or the worst shot? Your choice.
Oh, how much money?
It could be a personal life gamble. It could be a poker situation or whatever.
Oh man, how much time do you have? You know what I mean? There was one time I was playing so well online. I was convinced I was gonna do well at the PCA, so I put myself into everything at the PCA one year. I did this once with the series and once with the PCA. I can't remember what years though, but I took something like a $25,000 roll to each one and just blew it. It just couldn't connect, couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat or something like that. And it was just, it was pretty crazy. Like, well, that was 1 week and $25,000. That's that wasn't great. Greatest, I'm trying to think of a good shot I took. There was a few times when I was a teenager, I said, oh, the hell with it. And I played some live event satellite and late at night ended up winning it, even though maybe I had no business playing it. And I got to go to some I got to travel the world off of that. So that was pretty fun.
Where's the place you liked visiting the most during your poker travels, and where would you still like to go?
Oh, that's a great question. So Prague, I got to take my family to Prague one year, which was, just something I never thought I'd be in a position to do. So I took them to Prague for Christmas, which was just ridiculous because it looks like something out of a Disney movie with all the castles and the snow and the cobblestone streets and whatnot. And yeah, we had a great time there. That was a lot of fun. I'm trying to go to Barcelona. I love, I would love to go there. It's one of very few languages I actually speak a few words in too. So I would hope I'd feel a little bit more comfortable there versus I was in France a few years back, actually more than a few years. It was a lot of fun, but damn, I could not communicate with anyone. And every one of my attempts to speak French they were real cool about it. I eventually learned, do you speak English in French? And that was it. But it was tough as hell to get around.
Yeah, it's Assassinato. That's Spanish, right?
Yeah, it's I guess it's spelled different in Spanish. It was Portuguese. I heard the word. My dad lives in Brazil. He lives down there now. He with his wife there, and I heard Assassinato somewhere there, I think. And that's why I named myself that. I didn't know, when I was 36, I'd still be calling myself Assassinato. It was just kind of this is a cool name, a typical 18-year-old guy.
Did you enjoy, because you lived in Costa Rica, right? Did you enjoy living abroad?
Yeah, I loved everywhere I got to live. I lived in South Korea, I lived in Malta, I lived in Costa Rica. It teaches you a lot because you end up growing up in the United States. There's a lot of things they tell you about foreign countries, and it's not till you actually live outside of the United States you start realizing what's truth and what's fiction. So I spent 10 years outside of the States, and it gave me an appreciation for the United States that I didn't have before. There's still some things about this country that I know are not normal after I've lived outside of the country that drive me nuts. But Costa Rica was incredible. Super nice people, a lot of fun. It was at the time, I don't know how it is now, but at the time it was super affordable. You could going to the beach was a lot of fun. And there was and I didn't realize they had mountains in Costa Rica until I was there. It almost looked like Switzerland in some parts. It was just so nice and cool climate. And yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about how your eyes open up, from world travel. I tell people I didn't even become a person until I got this job with Card Player and I started seeing the world. And I'm not even a good traveler. I complain about not enough ice cubes when I'm in England, but just being immersed in people who didn't grow up the same as you was just so educational for me. Yes. In more ways than even just going off to college was. It's just everyone should travel. Obviously, I know everyone can't, but if you have a chance at moving, do it.
Absolutely, well said.
Especially if you're young. What about your biggest punt?
My biggest punt? One time I misread a guy's stack size deep in a tournament, and I shoved 8x the pot one time. I don't have too big of a punt, but that was pretty bad. I had a draw. I didn't hit it. So that one sucked.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how normal are you?
10 being normal and 1 being an alien?
Yeah.
A 1. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. No, I've been called a lot of things in my life. Normal is not one of them. I definitely. You got to be a little screwy to play this game every day for a living. This is not what.
Yeah, any poker player that gives me less than or more than a 5 is suspect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is not. You can't commit your life to this and not tell people. I'm a little different. So yeah, that's not. I'm not going to lie to you about that one.
What about your most prized possession?
My most prized possession. Man, that's a good one. Most prized possession.
It's got to go with you on every move.
It's got to go with me on every move?
I'm guessing, right? It's your most prized possession.
I'm trying to think about it. It's probably my Kindle, because I spend a lot of time reading, and I've had the same Kindle for, wow, that's crazy, maybe 10 years, 12 years. But yeah, just you get so far so quickly reading, and you get so many new concepts and so many ways to reframe your life, and you get so much better reading that, well, it's crazy when you think of what a book is. To get hippy dippy again, imagine some great teacher in 8 hours telling you everything about life that they've learned. That's a crazy opportunity, and you can get that for $10. Hell, you can get that for $2.99 on a Kindle, And my Kindle has 1,000 books on it. I've only gotten through a quarter of them or whatever it is. I'm an idiot buying the books. I end up starting a lot of books. I don't finish a lot of books. If a book starts boring me, or I go, this is repetitive, or I've heard this before, I'll start skimming, trying to find the meat. But
no, yeah, that's efficient. That's efficient. Well, who was the author who taught me that quitting is good? I can't remember who this was. Maybe it was
a few of them. Maybe Mark Manson. Was that him?
Maybe it was the guy who wrote Blink. and The Tipping Point.
Oh, Malcolm Gladwell, yeah.
Yeah, quitting basically just means you find what you like faster, whether that be a
Exactly.
hobby or something you're good at, a profession, or even a book you like. You know, life is short, and there's a lot of books out there. So if you don't like one 10 pages in, get rid of it.
Yeah, find the one that connects with you.
I like that. All right. Do you collect anything?
I collect books?
Yeah.
If to use what we were just talking about. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just books. I've got physical books in my house. I got audio books. I got Kindle books. Sometimes I get them in both formats because I think I'll assimilate more with one format than the other. I know that's a super pretentious answer, and I apologize to everybody
No.
listen to that, but that's the truth.
I write for a living, so I'm not going to complain about somebody complaining about who reads. What about this? A question. What's a book that? Well, first of all, do you intend to read more fiction or nonfiction?
I read more nonfiction, although fiction sometimes can reveal a lot more. Something I've always thought is nonfiction teaches you about the world. Fiction will teach you about yourself. If it's good fiction and you really come to understand a character, and you'll go, why is this person different than me? Why does this person think the way they think? And maybe that can change you. I mean, there's archetypes. There's the hero's journey, right? So there's definitely something to that with fiction. But all that being said, I don't read enough fiction. It's mostly nonfiction.
So what's a good book that's not a poker book for poker players to read?
Oh, a good book that's not a poker book for poker players to read. I believe it was going back to Michael Lewis of Moneyball fame. I believe it was called The Undoing Project, and I'm the worst with book titles. So
I haven't read that one. I read because he has a book called. He did Moneyball, and I read Liar's Poker as well, which doesn't have anything to do with poker.
Yeah.
But what is this Undoing Project?
Yeah, I think it's called The Undoing Project, and it's about the writing of the book Thinking Fast and Slow in that realm of study. And I forget what that is called, behavioral economics or neuroeconomics or something like that. I've heard it called multiple things, but it's about how they started doing studies, and these two guys, not only did they find humans are irrational, they found out humans are systematically irrational. So they're predictably irrational, and you can figure out how they're going to be irrational based on the data. And that it comes up in poker all the time. So that one's a really good one. And I'm trying to think of other books that really help me.
Well, that one's interesting to me. I'm going to get into it right away for sure.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that. I think reading Freakonomics just back when I was a teenager, maybe when it came out, maybe in early 20s. That changed the way I thought about everything. Same with Moneyball. The fact that people could be data driven. I stopped thinking about stupid little anecdotal things that happened in my life and really zoomed out on the bigger picture. And even now when I'm dealing with people in my day-to-day life and somebody tries to back up a point they're making with a story about their aunt, I can't help but think about Moneyball and Freakonomics, and like the data has to dictate everything.
Exactly.
Do you have any nicknames other than Assassinato?
Not really. I've had people call me Al instead of Alex, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
What was your worst job before poker? We talked about fishing. Did you do anything else?
Yeah, fishing was probably the hardest job. I just wasn't cut out for it, to be honest. I worked at an Arby's. That one got a lot easier once I figured out how to run the cash register, because then you're not over the grease, right? Just dealing with that. I moved Persian carpets. I moved lawns. I'm trying to think of what else I did. I know there was a few others, but I was a security guard. That was
really
I was a security guard at I don't know how I got the job. It was actually a pretty big company, and my job was.
What were you guarding?
I was guarding the headquarters of a Fortune 500 company, and it was an insurance company, and mostly you're there though to help people feel better. Like, it's better to have some guy walking around the parking lot at night just so people don't feel worried walking back to their cars and whatnot. Our instructions were if we ever saw anything, we were supposed to call the police immediately. We didn't even have firearms or anything. So it wasn't the hardest job there ever was.
You're a big guy, though, right? So security theater would be right up your alley.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't that big at that time. I'm about 6 feet tall and 210. But back then I was 6 feet 150. So I've put on 60 pounds since then. So yeah, and I don't feel overweight. That was all just eating too much and lifting weights.
But you used to wrestle, right? I used to wrestle in the 140 weight class.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Let's just say I do not weigh anything close to that.
Yeah, I was 200 in high school. I did wrestle. Man, that wrestling program was crazy though. I wasn't cut out for it. Yeah, I wrestled like with the heavyweights, but I was more or less the glorified sparring partner, or whatever they call it in wrestling. But I cut a bunch of weight my senior year of high school. I was playing cards all the time, and I was working out a lot because that made me clear-headed when I was playing cards at night online. And I started doing the distance running, and then I got down to like 150, 160 or something like that. And then
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird, right? And then I just gradually, as an adult, started gain. My weight fluctuated a lot, actually, thinking about it. It went up and down.
What was your largest non-poker wager?
My largest non-poker wager? I'm boring.
Oh, that just means disciplined.
Yeah, right. Discipline. We'll talk about that. No, it was like 25,000 on a business or something like that. Just 10. But whenever you go in on a business, you go, there's a really good chance this is going to blow up, right? Or 12,000 or something like that. So I don't even know if that counts though, because everybody knows it's not like a weight loss bet. There's no, it's not something exciting. It's like, oh no, we tried this business for 3 years. It didn't work out. All right. We learned a lot from it. We didn't get much out of it. The hell with it. So yeah, I'm pretty boring.
Did you get better odds on the business than you would have by placing that bet on the Super Bowl?
That's a great question. In retrospect, that's a really good question.
You know what I mean? Like, if we can call one of these a non-poker wager and the other, it all seems the same to me.
Well, that's the crazy thing when people go in on a restaurant. It's like, I've never done that, but isn't it something like 94% of restaurants fail?
Oh, restaurants? You didn't mention it was a restaurant. Okay, I didn't know you were just throwing your money in the trash.
I did not go in on a restaurant. No.
Okay.
For the record, it was not a restaurant. But when I hear of folks going in on a restaurant, I go, man, I would prefer the Super Bowl bet because, restaurants just seem so difficult to maintain.
It's like buying a boat.
What's that joke? There's two great days for a boat owner. The day he buys the boat and the day he sells the boat. Yeah,
hopefully for half of his money. Yeah. If you could download one skill instantly, like in The Matrix, what would you choose?
I mean, the obvious answer is like the most advanced poker there is. But in the spirit of the question,
is that a program in The Matrix? That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be great, right? But in the spirit of the question, I would download Spanish because I really love that part of the world. I've spent a lot of time in that part of the world, but I still speak really poorly in Spanish. Like, I can get my point across. I speak enough Spanish where people will start going, oh, wow, this person speaks Spanish. And then they go rapid fire with me. And then I don't understand a single word. And then I feel like, God, there's just a big world out there I'm not understanding. And I've had so much fun in Latin America. I'd love to go back there and actually be able to understand some of my friends more fully that I made down there and actually hear them in their native tongue and understand every single word and not be 20 seconds behind in my head trying to translate everything, wearing myself out.
Did you ever dream in Spanish when you were down there?
I did dream in Spanish. I still think in Spanish sometimes, but
yeah, that's a weird phenomenon, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I've I've had dreams in Spanish where I still didn't understand what people were saying. So
That's funny.
I don't know what that means.
All right. Headphones on at the table, yes or no?
It depends. Sometimes if I got a headache, I'll put them in or something like that. But most of the time I'm trying to listen to people and see what they're saying. But every once in a while, you got a guy there who wants to talk to everybody, and it's kind of distracting. So I'll just put the headphones in, and then I can still hear people, but it's a little bit muted, and it's a little bit easier to focus. I usually don't turn on anything. I used to do that years ago. I used to listen to music or whatever it was, but I just didn't feel like I was this part of the game. So I stopped doing that, and I liked the results once I stopped doing that.
Who was your celebrity crush growing up?
My celebrity crush growing up?
You're 36, right? So.
Yeah, I think it was Natalie Portman. When the Star Wars movies came out. And then was it Alicia Keys? Yeah. I liked Alicia Keys growing up.
Yeah, I remember when Alicia Keys came on the scene for sure. What about your celebrity doppelganger? Has anybody ever told you look like somebody, maybe growing up?
So I got a buzz cut when I was a kid. I can't remember why. But I don't know if it was a buzz cut, but I cut it short because it was so hot in Arby's, and I wanted the shorter hair. And that was right when Black Hawk Down came out, and I got Josh Hartnett 8, 9, 10 times a day for the next 3 or 4 months after that. And I used to get Jim Carrey when I was way too skinny. When I was like 150, I got Jim Carrey.
That's what I'll say. Like, if you fluctuated from 150 to 250, you're going to get all sorts of range of people, right?
That's right. Get the Jim Belushi at a certain point.
Who's the guy who plays Thanos?
I don't know. I haven't been to the movie.
Josh Brolin?
Yeah. I think that's right. That's the name.
I could see you looking like a young Josh Brolin, too. Like,
I appreciate that.
So,
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just wanted to hype you up a little bit.
Yeah, I used to get, when my hair was a little longer, I got Kurt Russell, but yeah, it's been a while since I got that one.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, if you could pick the entertainment for the Super Bowl halftime show, who would you choose?
The entertainment?
You don't have to choose anybody good. You could choose somebody bad for fun. It doesn't even have to be a musical artist.
The entertainment for the Super Bowl. Okay, let me think about it.
Or do you just have a favorite artist you'd want to promote?
Yeah. I would put Raunchy there. If you've never heard of this band, it's a metal band from Denmark. They do sing, they do some screaming, but they do a lot of singing as well. And all of their music was about partying and having a good time. And it was crazy catchy, and I could never turn it off. And it would be amazing for a party at the Super Bowl. Look Raunchy up on Spotify. You will not be disappointed.
We'll do 10 minutes of Raunchy followed by a 5-minute training video.
Exactly.
Just make everyone at the Super Bowl watch a poker training video. That'd be funny.
Just put them all to sleep.
Let's see. Are you superstitious at all?
I'm a little superstitious. Yeah.
Okay.
There's
in what way? What are you avoiding?
There's I notice when I say super negative things, it puts me in a negative attitude, and then my day goes to hell. So there's certain things I'm thinking that I won't say out loud like I used to. I don't, even around my house, I used to, obviously my dad's a commercial fisherman. I have no problem cussing. I don't see anything morally wrong with it. But I have this weird thing now where I don't do it around the house as much as I used to, because I think that's going to put me in a negative attitude, and then I'm not going to be playing right, and then I'm going to run bad. So essentially, it's a weird thing. I think if I speak it, I'm going to speak it into existence if I'm just being mad negative about something, whereas it's much better to go, okay, let's take a global view of this. What can I do better? So, yeah, I guess, would you call that superstitious?
I don't know. It sounds like it's based on science to my dumb brain, but
I hope so.
It works for me. Any phobias?
I have a fear of heights.
Heights, okay.
Yeah, I fell out of a tree when I was a kid, and I fell off a roof when I was a kid, And ever since then, if I'm looking down somewhere, I can still do it, right? Like I can still go up to the Space Needle if I need to, but it still takes me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way, but I'm fine in really tall spaces where I know I'm just gonna die on impact. Like that's it. Like if I fall out of like the stratosphere, I don't care, whatever. But if I'm 10 feet off the ground and I might, that's the scariest part for me. It's like I might fall and break a bone, and then be in a lot of pain for a while. Like I don't want to deal with that.
Well, even if you don't break anything, when I fell off of a roof onto a porch, that hurt like hell. Yeah. It was like somebody sucker punching you. You can't catch your breath for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just more afraid of medical bills than I am of heights.
I get that.
All right. The longest session you've ever played?
49 hours.
Whoa, what was the story there?
I was at a home game. I didn't want to leave.
It was a home game?
Yeah, it was a home game. Just kept going.
Man.
You know what? Now that I look back on that number, I'm wondering how accurate it is, because you ever do that thing where you have a memory and it's not till you're older you start second guessing all of your memories? But there was one time, one session, I busted the main event. I was feeling pretty good, so I hopped in one of the dailies, like a 2:35 daily, and so I started playing that day at noon, and I think I finished at 7 in the morning the next day, and I ended up winning that daily, so that one was pretty cool.
Oh, that's a long casino session, but like to spend almost 2 days in someone's home. See, I run a home game sometimes, and if people stay for more than 6 hours, I get angry.
Yeah, like let's wrap it up here, folks.
Yeah, that's a gracious host. I hope you won. I hope you stayed because you were winning and not because you were stuck.
I busted it all at the end, but surprise, I got a little tired.
Yeah, people don't play their best after 2 days, I guess.
That's right.
Any near-death experiences?
That's a good question.
A rogue salmon caught you? The wrong
spot.
I
mean, there's a few times where like no one's on the back of the boat, so if you fell, nobody would hear you. And yeah, we would hit a wave, and you got to grab something real quick, and you go, "Wow, that's that was close." There was one time, almost had a rope go at my head pretty quick when we were fishing, but nothing too bad, thankfully.
What is your biggest pet peeve at the table?
I don't like it when people lecture other people. I don't like it when people are not nice to the recreational players. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's just so lame. It's just, God, the person paid the buy-in. They can do anything they want from this point on. I've even had people apologize to me for showing me a bluff or something like that and going, okay, I shouldn't have done that. And I go, no, I mean, if that gets you hyped up and that's what gets you coming here, do it. It's your game too. You enjoy it however you want. If it's good for the game, if it's social, go ahead and do it. Keep it social. You don't need to be ragging on people for no damn reason.
What about when people are teaching at the table?
Does
that bug you? I mean, have you ever corrected someone's teaching?
Nah, I never say anything. But there's sometimes I don't even want people knowing there's a strategy. There's some people who just show up and they think it's bingo. I call here, I call whatever the bet is, and I see if my hand matches with the flop, and we go from that point. Don't tell people you're actually trying to get position on them so you can bet them off a hand. He might have never thought of that in his life before you just said that.
Exactly. That's funny. I worked at a table recently, and I got one of those rare people who showed up just out of the pits who literally had no idea what was happening. Just whenever they got to them, they just matched whatever bet was in front of them. Didn't matter.
Right.
Until it was all gone, and then everyone started talking again after that.
Amazing.
Do you have a bold prediction for poker's future?
A bold prediction for poker future. I think in 2035, we're going to be stunned at how poker's even bigger. I do believe it's a global game. I do believe it's going to be around here for centuries. And I do believe it's getting bigger. And I think there's going to be some kind of innovation that helps us speed it up. I don't know what it is, but once that comes in, because you think about it, people, when they go to the casino, they want action. They want it to be quick. And poker's not that quick. It's a slower game. And you look at baseball. I know I've mentioned baseball 14 times in this interview. My apologies. It's one of my favorite sports. But if you look at baseball, they didn't think they could do a shot clock forever in baseball. And then they put it in there, and sure enough, everybody adjusts overnight. So I think there's going to be a faster form of poker that comes in. I think it's going to be hyper popular. I think that's going to bring even more people in. I think the youth is going to start looking at it more like a computer game. I think it's going to get bigger from that point on. I think it's going to be like StarCraft was in South Korea back in the 2000s. It's just going to be hype by 2035.
Oh, that means Elky's coming back.
Yeah, good callback. I forgot about that.
He just won a tournament in Taiwan, I believe, or Taipei. So he's still around doing his thing. We end the podcast the same way every time, with a question from the random question generator. All right. Yeah, it could be anything. Who knows? Oh, do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Beastie Boys. I love the Beastie Boys. They're real fun. It gets the whole place live.
Yeah, and then you could show off those rapping skills, right?
Yeah, that high-pitched shrill. Yes, sir.
That's that's actually tough karaoke to do, because they got multiple lyricists going, so that's not designed for one person to get all the lyrics out, so that's tough.
That's right. Yeah, it's fun though. There's to be honest with you, usually when I go to karaoke, I just let my girl sing because she's got a great singing voice. But if people go, you got to sing something, I'll go do Intergalactic for the hell of it, and usually not be on time. You're right. It's a really difficult rhyme scheme.
Everyone will join in, then they don't have to worry about it. All right. Thank you, Alex, so much for taking the time and answering the questions and telling the stories.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
That's it. That is the show. Thank you once again to Alex. Please go check out his website, pokerheadrush.com, and sign up for his free newsletter. You'll also get the 3 free training videos right away. You can find Alex on Twitter/X at pokerheadrush, and you can find us at cardplayermedia. And while you're waiting for the next episode of Poker Stories to drop, go read the magazine and go check out cardplayer.com. Thanks for listening.